Shalom and welcome. You're listening to Temple Talk from the Temple Institute in Jerusalem, Israel. Rabbi Chaim Richman here with Yitzchak Ruvain. Today is the 30th day of the month of Shvat, 5776. That means it's the first day of Rosh Chodesh, the new moon of Adar number 1. It's February 9th, 2016, and this week, Parashat Terumah, all about the building of the Tabernacle in the Holy Temple. Amazing subjects that we have facing us today. First of all, it's twice the fun because we have 2 months of Adar. And as everybody knows, Adar is, should we say, the lucky month? It's the month that's very, as to use a word that Yitzchak Ruvain loves to use, it's a propitious time for the people of Israel. So if you're going to have an extra month, why shouldn't it be Adar? That would be great. But what is this all about? So this is what's called a leap year, which is an amazing idea that just demonstrates the mastery of the sages of Israel over, if I may, time itself. The commandment that is given over to the sages of Israel to establish the patterns of time. What is this year all about? It's actually called Hashanah Me'uberet, which literally means a pregnant year. Pregnant with possibility. Pregnant with something extra, and that is an extra month. So how does it work? How do we define it very, very succinctly? Well, it has to do with the discrepancy, as it were, between the solar year and the solar calendar and the lunar calendar. The Torah's calendar, according to Torah commandment, is really based on the new moon. That's what we learn in Exodus 12, if you remember, the whole concept of Rosh Chodesh, which is today, the first day of the 2-day new moon of Adar 1. But the lunar cycle is about 29 and a half days, and therefore a lunar year of 12 months contains about 354 days, because the months alternate between 29 and 30 days in length. Make a very, very long story very, very short. I'm not so good at math. The Torah also commands us that Passover must always be celebrated in the spring, as we read in Deuteronomy 16:1, and Sukkot during autumn. So this has a lot to do with the festivals retaining their proper positions relative to the seasons of the year, and it's an adjustment that's made to enable the lunar calendar to maintain harmony with the solar cycle, and thus in the 3rd, 6th, 8th, 11th, 14th, 17th and 19th year of every 19-year cycle, an entire month is added before the month in which Passover falls. And that's called a Shana Me'uberet, a pregnant year. And it's really pretty amazing idea, this 13th month, as it were. It is an extra month of Adar. So the real month of Adar, as it were, is the 2nd Adar, which is next month. In other words, Purim actually falls out in Adar Bet. And if a child, for example, is born in Adar, then they don't really celebrate their birthday this month. They celebrate it next month. And so if a child, let's say, was born in a year when there was only one Adar, then their birthday is in that Adar. But if a child was born in a year which is only one Adar, and we have a Shana Me'uberet, then they don't really celebrate it in Adar Aleph. But if a child was born in the Shana Me'uberet, in Adar Aleph, that means that they only occasionally actually have a birthday. And I think this is all so amazing because there's something extremely, extremely unique about not only the tremendous wisdom and mathematical and astronomical calculations of the sages of Israel, but the idea of the extra Adar also as kind of like just a special opportunity that we are given for extra time. It's like this month, honestly, Yitzchak, it's above time. Yeah. It's above time. It's like, this is so great. It's so great. Not that it doesn't count, but it's like, what is this exactly? Where are we? We are given like a tremendous present from heaven that we have extra time. It's amazing. It's
Usually
amazing.
on the first of Adar, already our thoughts go immediately to Pesach, to Passover. Even today, when it's just a matter of getting things ready, starting to get your house ready, getting things clean and kosher for Passover. But certainly in the time of the Mikdash, the Holy Temple, beginning with Adar, the Sanhedrin would send out pakachim, send out inspectors, whatever,
Right.
to make sure that the roads
To start to
are in
public
good
services
condition, and bridges haven't been washed out by winter rains, etc., etc. And if they came to the conclusion that the weather was still too stormy and things were still in a state of disrepair that would greatly impede the regel, the pilgrimage,
The process
then
of the-
they
of
could
the-
actually, the Sanhedrin could actually add that second Adar in order to give the people
That's a very good point.
and the
And
inspectors
Passover
extra time
is so
to prepare.
important. The concept of providing for all of Israel their needs communally to be able to make the trek up to the Holy Temple and to see to it that everything would be in position and the logistics would be clear, the roads would be clear, and like you said, that huge winter rain sometimes washed out roads. And if they saw that there wasn't enough time to accommodate the influx of the millions of pilgrims that would be walking the highways and byways of the land of Israel towards the Holy Temple, then that in itself was a reason occasionally to make the extra month. Again, that shows us several things. It shows us the preeminence of Pesach, and it also shows us this relationship that the sages in their wisdom have with the concept of time. As we've mentioned many times when it comes to Exodus 12, the idea that that's the beginning of time, really. The whole concept of Rosh Chodesh is the beginning of time. But what's extremely amazing, the idea that Adar itself is a very special time for Israel, the mazal, as it were, of Adar. And so now we got two, actually, and we could use it. Definitely could use it. And in any event, Rosh Chodesh, which is today, is the capsulization of all of the emanations, all of the power, all of the aspirations, all of the hope, all of the potential of the month. So today, it's really a very holy day. And besides that, this week, we are reading Parashat Terumah, which of course is, everything's been leading up to this. It's about Va'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham, and they shall make for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell among them. And from this point on, everything becomes centered around God's presence in the tabernacle. The tabernacle, later in Jewish history, becomes the Holy Temple, the Mishkan, which is the temporary, traveling, in miniature, modest, collapsible form of the Holy Temple in the desert, and then later in the land of Israel until Mount Moriah was established as the place for all time. That becomes, the Mishkan becomes the Mikdash, just as the word is used here in the verse, Va'asu li mikdash, they shall make for me a sanctuary. And, how do we look at this? This is the whole issue, because some people look at the whole temple thing as like another point of the Torah, and some people come and say, you know what? Judaism has evolved. That's how it used to go. And now the way that it goes is that we have our synagogues, our community centers, our organizations. What's the difference? Some people even take it further and they actually express themselves in a context that's not at all Jewish in an authentic way. And they say, well, we're the temple. Now, Jews don't say that, by the way. That's not a Jewish attitude. We're the temple. You're right that the verse says, if they make for me a sanctuary, I will dwell among them, in each of them. But the idea here is that this is not about a building, and it's not just another point. It's not just another issue. It's not just, well, Judaism has evolved since then because, we don't need to be obsessed about this kind of thing. Nor is it a symbol of sovereignty or nationalism. But what would happen if we began to understand that this is actually everything This is the main thing. This is the reason the Jewish people were taken out of Egypt. This is actually the reason for Adam HaRishon in the first place. This is everything. You know why? Because there is a relationship here between man and God. Because there is a world that God created to be a place wherein there would be a recipient to receive his goodness, to know who he is. It's the saga and the drama of the human condition that we are playing a part in. We're here. And the idea is, do we want God to be here also? Well, look around the world today, it doesn't really look like most people want him to be here at all. But the concept of the Holy Temple is so much more than another mitzvah or an interesting tangent or an interesting manifestation of Israel's ancient culture or all the other ridiculous claptrap expressions of academics and critics and all the different ways that people view Jewish history. What happens if it's actually a different kind of message altogether? It's God's message that we have the opportunity to live life on a completely different level. That's what it's all about. And, of course, everything is up to us. And everything that goes on in the temple is a signal to us to instill into every aspect of our lives a connection to a completely different level of consciousness. That's what we've been going on and about all these years here in the Temple Institute. This isn't about a building. It's about living life to the fullest as Jews, which frankly, if we just start reviewing the news and what's going on and the challenges that we face and the tremendous pathos of misunderstandings and exploitation and miscarriage of justice and everything else that's going on, this is the problem. The problem is that there is a recipe in a Torah, there is a command, there is a directive, there is advice that God gives us in order for us to live our lives with Him in our midst and for us to be focused on being the people that we should be. And it was never presented as like an option, like option A, try this, option B, try that. It was presented as the whole purpose of why we stood at Sinai and why our senses transcended their borders, and why God spoke to us and revealed His true essence to us, and why we crossed the sea. It's all in order for us to bring the divine presence into the world. That's the goal of the Temple Institute. That's what Parashat Terumah is all about.
And of course, Parashat Terumah, which begins with the word Terumah, Kuli Terumah, is about the participation of all of Israel in creating the tabernacle in the desert, and of course in creating the Holy Temple, creating the conditions for it, and creating the temple itself, building the temple itself, and maintaining the service in the temple, and maintaining the Holy Temple as our central meeting point with one another, and of course with God. So Terumah, the word Terumah doesn't mean tabernacle. The word Terumah means you shall raise up from the children of Israel, from anybody who has it in their heart, really, who has a spirit of giving in their hearts to be part of making for me, God, a sanctuary, a place to dwell among you on this earth.
But of course, people have their opinions. People are very opinionated about this particular subject, and like I said, some will say, "Well, we've evolved since then. We don't need that." I don't think that's exactly what the verse means. It can't be, and all sorts of different kind of attitudes that people have grown and sprouted about these things, which is, of course, so interesting because this is one of the few occasions in the Torah where Hashem says to do something for me. He says, "V'kuli truma," take for me a portion, an offering, as if to say, I really didn't ask you your opinion about it. I appreciate your thoughts. Thanks for feedback. But actually, this has nothing to do with you. This is for me. It's not about you. And of course, the giveaway here is from every man whose heart motivates him. Yeah, not everybody's heart motivates them. But this is the vision. The vision is for God's presence to be. World. So then we go back to what's going on. Let's see now. We got a kid, nice, beautiful Jewish boy, who was filmed singing Hatikva, Israel's national anthem, on the Temple Mount. And on the one hand, you've got terrorists who are lunging at people with knives. The police have to react very, very quickly. And here, the police reacted very, very quickly. And they moved against this young fellow on the Temple Mount. We have it on film. You can see it on the Temple Institute's Facebook page. And the policemen lunge at him, and one of them covers his mouth with his hand as if the poisonous humors that are emitted into the atmosphere of Israel's national anthem have to be stopped at all costs. So he ran and clapped his hand over his mouth. The boy was incarcerated and held, I believe, all night long. And then this morning, the court actually convened, and we've read the protocol this morning. He was, I don't even know if he was released because he had to put up a bond. But he was given a sentence of a 15-day distancing from the Temple Mount. And the judge wrote there, of course, Israel's symbology of Israel's statehood, such as the hymn, is of paramount importance, and it's protected by law. But the big but is that the Temple Mount is a flashpoint of all sorts of what does it say there? All sorts of conflict, and therefore sometimes you have to just be wise and not right.
This must be what the newly installed police commissioner, Rani Al-Sheikh, was referring to in an interview the other day, and he said, yes, clearly there's discrimination on the Temple Mount against Jews, but the reason is that because there are Jewish extremists who create provocations, and that's why police have to be with them all the time. And this is new, because the police never tell us that. The police always say, we're here to protect you.
So Yitzhak and I have a tremendous bone to pick with the new police commissioner.
And if this is what he calls
tremendous
extremist provocation, to sing, not at the top of his lungs, singing to himself.
This is a kippah-wearing Jew.
Hatikva.
The new police commissioner comes along and says, yes, it's terrible that there's discrimination against the Jews on the Temple. As everybody knows, they have these escorts. They're treated a certain way. But the reason is because there are Jewish provocateurs. In the meantime, and this is the first time that the police have ever issued such a statement. Until now, they've said that the reason that we have this police escort and the whole police presence and the whole ostensibly discriminatory practice against the Jews in the Temple is to protect us, because actually, as the courts maintain, we have every right in the world to visit the Temple Mount, and we must visit the Temple Mount. And so he is spinning it that, once again, it's the victim's fault, it's the Jews' fault. And this, I guess, he calls a provocation for a fellow to actually think of singing Hatikva on the Temple Mount.
To get the real irony, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the words of Hatikva. It's a very short song. I'm just going to read the words. As long as the Jewish spirit is yearning deep in the heart, with eyes turned toward the east, looking toward Zion, then our hope, Hatikva, our hope, the 2,000-year-old hope, will not be lost, to be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem. And guess what? The word Zion often is used to refer specifically to the Temple Mount, the Holy Temple. So this, to be arrested for singing this song, which references our 2,000-year aspiration to return to this very specific place, the Temple Mount, to be arrested for singing this song there is beyond absurd. It's just begs the imagination. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know, and you can see in the video that the policeman who was standing idly by when he opened his mouth, and he had just been giving a long talk to the camera, this young fellow, about the importance of being independent and standing up for our rights and standing up against our enemies. As soon as he broke into this song, the policeman charged him, covered his mouth, as if someone had just pulled out a knife, God forbid. And the policeman could not have acted any more quickly. I mean, congratulations to the policeman for just being really on his toes there, but for violently arresting somebody for opening their mouth and singing Hatikva. I mean, he didn't even say, could you not sing that? It's considered to be a provocation and we'll have to arrest you if you continue. Nope. It was with gusto that he arrested this young man. And again, was captured in video, and it's in a number of places, but we have posted it also on our YouTube channel. You can see it on our Facebook page. And it's just pretty remarkable that this takes place in the land of Israel, in the state of Israel, 2016 on the Temple Mount where the Holy Temple stood. It's just amazing.
Yeah. In the meantime, Yitzhak, we have had more attacks here in the Holy Land of Israel. The murder of Hadar Cohen last week took place, I think, after our broadcast.
Yeah.
We didn't get to express our mourning for that young girl, and I believe that actually the 19-year-old Hadar Cohen that was murdered by an Arab terrorist in Jerusalem. I think that was her first patrol.
It was her first patrol, and she
Something
managed to, after
horrible
being
like that.
attacked, to shoot at the attacker, and by doing so, save the life of a fellow policewoman who was likewise attacked.
Today alone, 2 attempted stabbings were thwarted this morning. Again, a 16-year-old girl attacked border police this morning near Damascus Gate. There were 2 13-year-old girls that tried to attack with the knives in Ramla. In the meantime, Hamas keeps building tunnels and they keep collapsing.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's all about, but they've already announced that their tunnels once again reach into Israel.
And in the meantime, Iran is, as their president, I think a week or 2 ago, took his victory lap around Europe. Iran is busy taking all the money that has been freed up for them, billions of dollars, and investing much of it into a terrorist infrastructure, much of it aimed at the state of Israel. That's what's going on.
So the beat goes on, and here we are. Number 1, it's Rosh Chodesh Adar 1, the special extra double mystery month of opportunity that we have on the leap year. And number 2, this week is Parashat Terumah. And I think that those 2 points, very scintillating, work together to form the theme, which is the very essence of what's missing from the picture and what it's really all about. The cause of the people of Israel is the building of the Holy Temple, and that is the dynamic that informs everything that we do. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Temple Talk.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk here in Jerusalem, the heart of Israel, the heart of everything. This is Yitzchak Reuven with Rabbi Chaim Richman, Temple Institute. Today is the 30th and final day of the month of Shvat, first day of Rosh Chodesh Adar, the new month of Adar, which of course, as the rabbis mentioned, is 2 months this year. The year is 5776. It's also known as February 9th, 2016. You were mentioning earlier, Rabbi, that that we celebrate a birthday, for example, in Adar Bet, in the second Adar. Correct?
Correct.
And next Monday will be the 7th of Adar, and that is Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses' birthday and day of departing from this earth, correct? And we do not cite that until next month, or we honor that twice? That's my question to you.
It's kind of like a transparency. It's like the Purim, the days of Purim in the first Adar are called Purim Katan because they're like giving off a little resonance in preparation for the following month. It's just like this. It's kind of cool. It's like this extra like something. I don't know exactly how to describe it.
But for example, if someone were to light a candle next Monday in honor of, in memory of Moses, right? People do that. would people do that next Monday, or would they wait until the following month?
I think they would wait until the following month.
Okay, there you have it, people. I asked a question from the rabbi, and I got my answer.
Yitzchak,
Yes,
talking about the Temple Mount,
yes.
you know, there's another story that
Going around.
generated a lot of interest past few days, which is related to a decision that was made by the government to allocate a part of the Western Wall plaza in the southern area for mixed gender prayer.
Yes.
Which is a whole another story that we don't need to get into. Good, bad, whatever. It's something that is very much in the public discourse. The whole idea of allocating an area, which is going to be kind of less provocative to those Orthodox Jews that are offended by women leading their own services at the Kotel and that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting for our practical purpose is that Jordan told Israel to stop. Jordan
Right.
told Israel to halt its expansion plans of opening a special area at the bottom of the Temple Mount in the southern part of the Western Wall, because that area belongs to the Waqf. And the Waqf has total jurisdiction over all of Jerusalem's holy places, and that is part of some sort of palace that was built in some century according to Islamic history.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole Western Wall
Yaddy,
Plaza
yaddy.
anyway has nothing to do with the Jewish people.
So
And the last that I heard, if I'm correct,
Yeah.
is that Israel actually is quietly backing off of its plans. And by the way, there's a whole unresolved controversy still about another story that we've been talking about for months, which is the
The
plan
cameras.
that was accepted under the brokerage of Mr. Kerry to monitor everything going on the Temple Mount through cameras. And the controversy is between Israel and Jordan: who's going to get the footage,
where the
who's
cameras are going to be placed.
and Jordan is on top. Jordan is on top in this situation, totally running the show, and this is part of the whole illusion of the Temple Mount being in our hands.
And so I'd like to welcome aboard all those Reform Jews and liberal Jews, whatever they want to call themselves. I don't need to give anybody any names, who now are in the same covenant, the same
they're in the sights
of the Muslim Waqf as we are, because they're doing something which the Muslim Waqf objects to. And so I assume that the police will treat people who would enter into that southern area, and try any kind of sneaky, provocative, mixed gender type of prayer. And they should rush them off and put them in jail, just like they do with Jews in the Temple Mount, who have the nerve to utter a prayer or sing Hatikva, much to the
So
dismay
we're all in the same
of
boat.
We're all in the
You're
same
saying
boat, exactly.
The kid
And
with
not only
the
that, there's
long
another-
payas who wanted to sing Hatikva, the ultra-nationalist, hilltop-looking youth who's of course terribly dangerous, who wanted to sing Hatikva because he's such a sweet Jewish boy on the Temple Mount. He's in the same boat as the Reform Jews, who simply want to be able to pray according to their conscience on a small platform in the Kotel area, because Jordan calls everything, quote, continued Israeli violations against Islamic sites and heritage in occupied Jerusalem.
And there's a whole other can of worms, Rabbi. And that is the fact that the Kotel, which has no
spiritual
significance other than historically for the past couple of hundred years being the place where Jews pray, has become a big outdoor synagogue, and which unfortunately has had the effect of dividing the Jewish people. The exact opposite effect that the Holy Temple would have of bringing everybody together. If he would just build a Holy Temple, we'd solve all the problems. We wouldn't have to worry about the Waqf. We wouldn't have to worry about the Kotel. We could all be on the Temple Mount together, worshiping God as one united people.
So here's the State of the Union in this Rosh Chodesh Adar Aleph Parashat Terumah week. State of the Union is that the Palestinians, I can't believe I used that word. The Muslim terrorists who identify themselves as the false Palestinian people now actually validate themselves and quote Ban Ki-moon,
Right.
because they, in their forums, because they say that as the august and important position of the Secretary General of the United Nations points out, murdering Israelis is human nature. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not what he said. He said resisting occupation is human nature. But the fact is, in the meantime, CBS News last week went and reported when an attack was. There's so many attacks that are taking place every day that I can't even keep up with it. Was it the Hadar Cohen attack?
I think so.
CBS News reports it that 2 Palestinians were killed, as if these Palestinians were walking down the street and they were killed randomly. Right? They don't even bother reporting anymore that the Palestinians attacked Jews and murdered them.
It's natural.
And the reason is because it's human nature.
It's like
to kill Israelis.
Like if a dog bites a human being, it's not a man. It's not a big deal. If a Palestinian attacks and kills a Jew, it's not a big deal. If a Jew responds, defends himself, and kills the Palestinian, Arab, or whatever terrorist, that's the story, because that's unusual.
So Iran, which has now been restored of its billions of dollars
Right.
from Europe and America, everybody's rushing to invest in Iran now, and Iran says that they're going to continue supporting Hamas because that's their struggle, that's their purpose, and in the meantime, Hamas calls for more suicide bombings to be renewed again on Israeli buses, and Hamas is digging their tunnels that they do seem to be collapsing. I don't know what that's all about. And they say that now their tunnels are reaching into Israel again. And Israel, for its part, goes and, of course, considers revoking citizenship, or even revoking citizenship of relatives, occasionally possibly destroying a home. But it doesn't, it's not working. It's not working, all of these measures. And you know why? Because we're not building the Holy Temple, because we're not saying this is ours, because we're not saying this is our purpose in life. We have to stop apologizing and excusing ourselves, and because maybe we believe ourselves that we are occupiers, are occupying Jerusalem.
You know what, Rabbi?
We're violating.
As long as we're not building or preparing as a nation to build the Holy Temple, a place for God to dwell, then you know what? We are occupiers, because we're not here fulfilling the purpose that we were sent here for. And I really believe that were we to, as a nation, focus on this challenge of building the Holy Temple and creating a place for God's presence for all the world, I think that our enemies would absorb that fact. And I think they would look at us a little differently and relate to us a little differently. I mean, you know what? Build a place where God can dwell, where the entire world can unite around it. And I think that'll get you some kind of respect in this world, even among our most bitter enemies.
Exactly.
Start to say before, Rabbi, about this week's Parashat Terumah, that it starts out, we talked about that first verse, it starts out, and by the way, anybody who visits our Facebook page will see that we've begun, and we will for the next few weeks, and all these parashot that deal with the building of the Tabernacle, or showing lots of pictures and videos of all the things that the Temple Institute has done to prepare for the building of the Holy Temple, the projects, the menorah, the table of the showbread, the Ark of the Covenant, etc., etc. It's like a big festival for us, as these are what we like to say here. These are our Torah portions, because they're so much part of our mandate of who we are and what we do. So we hope to share as much of our accomplishments with everybody over the next few weeks, and spread some of the enthusiasm and some of the dedication toward this task. And as we start to say before, God, the moment that Moshe walks up into the mount for 40 days, right? The first thing, last parsha, ends with Moshe goes up to the Temple Mount. To Mount Sinai for 40 days to receive Torah from God, and then he will come down and teach all of Israel. The first thing that God shares with Moshe is talk to the people, tell them that anybody who has it in their heart to be part of this, I want you to build a place for me. That's the very first thing. That's the first order of business. Everything after that is evolves around that initial beginning. Build for me that place. And he's asking people, he's saying anybody who wants to be part, you are welcome.
And that's the crazy thing about the world is that people have this attitude. They say, "Is this relevant?" The truth is, if this isn't relevant, nothing is relevant.
Or the question, well, should we be doing this? Does it really apply to us? Oh, well, does circumcision apply to us? Does Passover apply to us? Does keeping kosher apply to us? Of course this applies to us. Why would this commandment, which is so central and obviously so dear to God that he says, build it for me, why would that be any less applicable than any other commandment that we keep to this day?
Not only is it central and is it dear to God, as he himself expresses so abundantly throughout the rest of the Torah now from this point on, but I think the idea is it's so much a part of our identity. It's so much our core identity. I mean, this is the whole issue now that we face on every front, not only on what's going on the Temple Mount, but Israel's standing in the world, Israel's own self-identity, every internal struggle, every gyration that we are going through as we are catapulted throughout history, and as we buffet between merely surviving and flourishing as a nation with God in its midst that is destined to bring that light into the whole world. It's all about our attitude about this whole concept of whether or not we want to go the distance and shine forth with that spiritual maturity that leads to responsibility, that we are ready to be the stewards of God in the world. That's what these Parshiot are all about. And for almost 30 years, the Temple Institute has been leading the way in this whole spiritual revolution, so that now, again, things are so different and so much more positive and so much more hopeful that these concepts are really returning to the heart of Israel. But it wasn't always the case, not 20 years ago or even 10 years ago now, but now there is a total revolution, I think, in Israeli society and consciousness around these concepts, and it's because of the work of our Rabbi Yisrael Ariel, because of his tremendous revolutionary scholarship, leadership, example, compassion for the Jewish people and the world, and vision. The Temple Institute, under his leadership, has become the spiritual father of all temple consciousness of this generation. And rarely do we actually turn to our public and ask for support, but this is the time to do that, because the Torah tells us this week, Hashem says to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel and let them take from me a portion. As you pointed out, Terumah means to raise up. It's something that's elevated, because that's the whole idea, that we raise up our own possessions that God himself gives us, as it was in the time of the Tabernacle, when the very materials that were used to build the Tabernacle were given to them by God as what they took out of Egypt. But the idea is, this is the heart of everything. This is the heart of our existence. This is the heart of who we are as a people. And this is the time for us to remind everyone who benefits from the Temple Institute's teachings, and everyone who has a heart for the promise that is the future of Israel and the world. We really can use the help. Israel and Jerusalem in particular is going through a difficult period with the continued violence. There are less people that are visiting Jerusalem. This has grave financial implications to institutions that are nonprofit, such as the Temple Institute. So if the vision of the building of the Holy Temple speaks to you, and if you can appreciate the leading role that the Temple Institute has played and continues to play in the life of mankind towards the realization of the restoration of the Holy Temple, please take this opportunity to give generously to the Temple Institute in Parashat Terumah.
And you can do so by going to our Facebook page, where you will see a link for PayPal, or going to our website, templeinstitute.org, where you will see on each page a prominent link for the donate page, PayPal, credit card, check. If you have any other questions, you can write to us. Every and any donation is very welcome. Any amount of money is welcome. It's where your heart is that counts. And there's, the world is so big, and there's so many things going on, so many good things, so many bad things, so many frightening things that you don't always know how you can express yourself in such a way or do something that make a difference. Well, this makes a difference because at the very, very least, you're making a statement saying that you are on the side of good, you're on the side of God, and that you want to help enable this commandment that God said so succinctly: they should build for me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. It doesn't get more clear than that. It really doesn't need a whole lot of interpretation. It's right there. So if you want to put your heart in the right place, you can do so by making a donation. And I can assure you that the money that people donate goes to the many projects and educational endeavors that we take upon ourselves each year.
And this week, God willing, in our Torah portion, we're going to explore Parashat Terumah in a new way, a new direction.
Mm-hmm.
So many questions
here
that people have about, the significance of the items that God commands us to create in this week's Torah portion, these particular vessels and their materials. It's very intriguing why these are the central points of the divine service. So we're going to explore that on a deeper level this week as well.
Not going to explain them away as being some kind of metaphor for good behavior or something, right?
I don't think
is sometimes done.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. No, these
are pretty literal.
It's pretty literal, and you can't take a menorah or a table or a golden altar and simply brush it off as being some kind of metaphor for how we should behave as human beings, which, yes, of course, all that symbolism is very beautiful, and we can gain a lot from it. But again, God states very clearly, these are the things, these are the materials, these are dimensions. It's a work order. And it applies to us just as it applied to the generation in the desert. And you know what? The generation in the desert didn't seem to hesitate. They went right to it. People volunteered with their possessions and volunteered with their skills and their time.
I think our generation has many of those same attributes. I think our generation is not hesitating. Yeah, there are definitely powers that be that are trying to hold it down, that are trying to shush it, that are trying to quash it. But our generation is definitely not hesitating. You know where I'm going straight from here, from this recording? May I share this with you?
Yeah, please do.
When I finish recording Temple Talk with you today, it's like I'm on my way to a ceremony where my youngest boy is just graduating an elite course for future commanders of the IDF.
Mm-hmm.
And he graduated. There's only a few that make it to the end of the course. It's very grueling. It's very difficult. And he is going to begin his career now as being a commander and receive his post. And I am so proud of him. Talk about a generation that doesn't hesitate and that is taking responsibility. And that's the generation that could rebuild the temple, a generation of religious Jewish boys who their greatest privilege is to protect this land and to serve.
And they have the vision and they have the determination and they certainly have the skills and abilities to carry through on it. And so hopefully soon a generation of leadership will actually inherit or take over the actual leadership posts in this country, and the story that you'll be hearing out of Israel, the narrative, will be very different than it is today, or I should say more focused and to the point and more really in line with what we're reading about here in Parashat Terumah, which is God wants it. Who are we to hesitate? God says, do this for me. And what could be a greater honor? What could be a greater act of humanness, of humanity, than to do something simply for God because God asked us to? It's the most selfless thing. And what is more beautiful than a selfless act of love?
And what a celebration of our relationship with God to actually fulfill this commandment.
Yeah, and what a difference it would make in the world. You know, people say, ooh.
But what would Ban
against the
Ki-moon
law.
say?
Ban Ki-moon,
Could we say that, listen, it's human nature to want to bring the presence of God into the world?
wow, there's something. Well, you know what?
But he would probably say that it's human nature to resist the occupation of the world by the God of Israel. I think that's the whole problem right there.
That could be, but, you know, I guess he's just doing his job as the head of that UN.
As the head of Amalek. Oops,
Yeah.
did I
Whoops.
say that?
Well, that's it, Rabbi. There's the music. Our time is up. Thank you so much for being with us. Temple Talk.